for my 49ers, oh man, there was definitely a lot to talk about. Not just from last season, but going into this season. So where do we even begin? I haven't talked about my team since, well, their season ended back in February. So I guess I'll try to dissect this down into the best Cliff Notes way I can possible. So for 2022 last year, when we're sitting here last year, it was supposed to be all about Trey Lance, all about ushering in the Trey Lance era, right? Gone was supposed to be Jimmy Garoppolo, or as I used to call him, Jimmy Garbage Fail. But thanks to some Shanahanism, or as I like to call it, Trey Lance got hurt 2 games in, and then in came the guy that the 49ers just refused to release before the season started, in Jimmy Garoppolo. And while he had a very bad start in his first couple games in, he actually managed to do okay in the 49ers. I think it was 10-game winning streak before he got hurt himself. And then he was also lost for the season. And then now with no other quarterback to turn to, Kyle Shanahan in week 13 had to turn to Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. We didn't really know what exactly we had in him, but he had no other choice. In a game against the Miami Dolphins, we had to turn to him because, well, Jimmy G got hurt on the first play of that game. And then, boy, he shocked the world with how quickly he stepped up to the plate, smoothly moved the offense. And then from there, it was just all of a sudden, that was no fluke. He went on to beat the likes of the Bucs, the Seahawks. And then he went on to just, I wouldn't say amazed, but he's just like, man, this guy is actually pretty good. And then he went on to lead the 49ers to wins in the wild card and divisional game. And then we get to the NFC Championship game. He gets hurt. And then Josh Johnson, their 4th-string quarterback of all people, gets hurt too. Then that leaves us with no quarterbacks. The Niners are left defenseless in an NFC Championship game in Philadelphia against the Eagles. 1 game away from the Super Bowl, and we fall short yet again. You finish the season 13-4. You win the NFC West, but for what? For what? You're one game short yet again for the 2nd straight year. But I think I said this in my NFC Title Game review. This one really hurt more so than the one against the Rams, because it's just man, we literally had no shot. We literally had no shot to win this at all because, well, we had no quarterbacks. We had nothing to fight them against. If Brock Purdy was still in there, hey, he at least would have made it close. But damn, there was literally no shot in that game. So anyway, obviously going into this offseason for the 49ers, your goal for 2023 was to figure out the starting quarterback and keep them healthy all year and finally get them back to the promised land in one piece. One piece only. And that, of course, was the Super Bowl. No NFC Championship appearance, just making it short. We did well. You got there to the NFC Championship game. No, get to the Super Bowl and win the damn thing in one piece. Damn it. So anyway, when you look at some of their offseason events for the 49ers, obviously Brock Purdy was injured, having the injured elbow in his throwing arm. He went on to have the elbow surgery in March, and from what I've read so far, he's apparently well ahead of schedule and currently on track to play in week 1. So that's good news. But then we get to the most interesting part of the quarterback situation. More of that later. You lose defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans because he becomes the head coach with the Houston Texans. So no DeMeco Ryans anymore, ladies and gentlemen. And then now we transition back to the quarterback position. All the media crap talk on Trey Lance. It's the Niners don't trust in Trey Lance anymore. Oh, he's going to become the 3rd-string quarterback. Oh, they're going to trade his ass. It's what the fuck are we doing here? It's are we that bored in free agency? Do we have nothing to talk about anymore? Did we just suddenly give up on Trey Lance? Are we watching the same thing? Or am I just that filthy casual? Have I not been paying attention that much? Or have I been avoiding 49ers Twitter all offseason long because, well, I've actually been watching the Bloodline story on WWE. I don't know. Either way, like what has been going on with Trey Lance? Because what I've seen with Trey Lance on Twitter or Instagram, wherever it may be, he looks fine. He looks fine. He needs to be given a chance, people. It's called give Trey Lance a chance to compete for the starting role. Like, what is this bullshit? So anyway, when it comes to team needs for the 49ers from this past offseason, obviously one of the biggest ones was finding that successor to the Miko Ryans, which they did with former Panthers interim coach Steve Wilks. So Steve Wilks, during his interim coaching tenure with the Panthers last season, he actually did pretty decently with that defense. And, you know, he nearly got the Panthers to a playoff berth because, well, the NFC South was terrible, but the defense, you know, it did a number on a couple of teams, including Tom Brady on like twice. Sure, it led to a season split, but, you know, going head to head with Tom Brady twice and like trying and limiting him as much as you could, you know, that's no joke. So you bring in former Panthers interim coach Steve Wilks. He's the successor, so that's at least something. The biggest priority on offense, though, was prioritizing that offensive line because, my God, that's what led to the whole injury to Brock Purdy in the first place. And the injuries to all the quarterbacks. Trey Lance gets hurt because, well, mainly because Kyle Shanahan's dumbass play calling week 2, but it's also the offensive line because of all the hits he took. And then Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt because, well, he got sacked like numerous times during the season. And then Brock Purdy gets hurt because, well, they just decided to use a 2 tight end set in the NFC Championship game. It's like, what the hell, man? That just proves that our offensive line absolutely sucked in 2022. So I mentioned that you need to prioritize the offensive line this offseason. Go get some people to protect him or whoever was going to be the starting quarterback. Speaking of quarterback, you needed to find a quarterback while Brock Purdy was out. So let's look at some of the moves that they made during the offseason. And did it make the Niners better? Did it make the Niners work? Or just in the middle? Let's take a look. Some of the people that they re-signed was center Jake Brendel. I mean, he was solid, but we'll see how he turns out. And if he can step up to the plate. They also re-signed offensive lineman Colton McKivitz. Yeah, good luck with that one. Free safeties, Tashawn Gibson. I think Tashawn Gibson was actually pretty solid in the safety rotation, so not a bad signing. Some of the people that they did lose, however, was free safety Jimmy Ward to the Houston Texans. So, man, they weren't able to keep him, but still a big loss nonetheless. They also lost edge rusher Samson Epicon to the Colts, corner Emmanuel Mosley to the Detroit Lions. Like, man, I'm just a little upset that they weren't able to keep him at a discount because he was coming off the ACL injury. But, oh well. Linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair went to the Titans. Right tackle Mike McGlinchey, thank God, went to the Denver Broncos. Let him be Russell Wilson's problem now because he was a penalty machine. Like, holy hell. So let him go be Russell Wilson's problem. And then one of the biggest losses that the Niners occurred was Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Las Vegas Raiders. So, I mean, go get that money, Jimmy G. Respect you as a person, but as a player, go play somewhere else. Like we kind of liked what you did, but then a lot of the times, no. Some of the people they did add during both free agency and the draft, the biggest move that they made was adding a defensive tackle by the name of Javon Hargrave from the Eagles. So he was a really good interior defensive lineman for them in the pass rush in the interior. So adding him in the interior alongside Eric Armstead is definitely going to help him out. So it should also help out that pass rush as well. They also added a backup edge rusher in Clelin Ferrell. He was a big bust for the Raiders, but who knows? Maybe he can revive his career here in San Francisco. They also added a corner by the name of Isaiah Oliver. Pretty solid from the Falcons. Center John Feliciano, so maybe he'll be competing, or maybe be a rotation piece in the center position. And then the biggest one that everyone was jizzing about throughout the offseason, I kept reading about this too. Sam Darnold followed Steve Wilks from the Panthers. Yeah. So apparently, yeah, there's this whole QB competition between Sam Darnold and Trey Lance. Yeah, that's a thing. So maybe, I don't know. At this point, let's just get on with it. So the draft. As I mentioned, my draft episode for the 49ers, they didn't have a lot of draft capital because of the Trey Lance trade and the Christian McCaffrey trade too. So they didn't have a lot of resources here. But they did make a decent amount of picks. Starting with safety Jair Brown. I thought that was a really good pick for them. And then people questioned this pick a lot, but I think it was okay for them with this spot. Kicker Jake Moody from Michigan. And I also heard that he's been doing pretty well. Excuse me. In OTAs and minicamp. So that's good progress there. Corner Darrell Luter from South Alabama. So he could be a solid corner rotation piece. And receiver Ronnie Bell from Alabama. So we'll see how that pans out. So for my 49ers, during this offseason, there's a lot of mixed results and a lot of takeaways from all my ranting so far. Looks like Brock Purdy is progressing well in his elbow rehab. So, like I said, he looks like he's on track to play week 1 in Pittsburgh. But it also looks like Trey Lance has shown major improvement in OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Obviously, the biggest test is yet to come with training camp and the preseason. So Trey Lance still has plenty tests to go, plenty of auditions to pass if he wants to hold the starting spot down away from Brock Purdy. So that remains to be seen. Otherwise, I don't know what you do at this point. I mean, I really want to give Trey Lance a chance. Like, I'm really one of those guys that really hopes that Trey Lance gets a chance. But it's just a really like, I don't see like, oh, he should just get traded, but it's like one of those really difficult situations, you know. And then the corner group, you know, at least it looks to be a little bit better. You know, at least now you have all these rotation pieces alongside, man, I can't remember the names, but you at least now have some pieces in that cornerback group. Last year, when pieces were starting to fall apart, yeah, it really fell apart when it did. But the offensive line, however, is still a serious question mark. Like, that was their biggest priority in the offseason. How hard was it for them to find a solution at right tackle to compete with Burford and McKivitz? I get it. You didn't have much money, but get something. Get something in the draft. Why was it so hard? Like, weren't there plenty of guards or linemen in the draft? I don't know. Do something with linemen, guard. Are they trying to get whoever lines up under center killed again in 2023? Come on. So looking at some of their potential key games of 2023, obviously you start in Pittsburgh in week 1, and then you continue that with the road trip down back west to the Rams in week 2. So another one of those two game road trips to start the season, but you cap that off with a 3-game homestand, I believe, to begin the season. But so it's another one of those things in odd years. So yeah, it's always like that. You get a big test in week 8 against the Cincinnati Bengals at home. So playing against Joe Burrow and that Cincy offense. So that defense is definitely going to get a test. Then after Thanksgiving against the Seattle Seahawks on the road, you have to go to Philadelphia to play the Philadelphia Eagles in a rematch of the NFC Title Game. So that's going to be a very big game. So how are the Eagles going to be at that point? How are the Niners going to be at that point? What is their playoff status going to be? If they're in playoff contention, we shall see. And then a rematch from Thanksgiving, week 14, you're hosting the Seahawks. Again, what are those teams going to be at by that point in the NFC West? So looking at some of these questions that I have for the 49ers entering 2023, obviously the biggest one of all, the most obvious one of all is going to be, which quarterback is Kyle Shanahan going to acknowledge as his QB1? Who's going to be his tribal chief under center? Is it going to be Trey Lance or Brock Purdy? Or hell, let's just do fuck all, and is it going to be Sam Darnold? Like, how did we end up in this mess? So, I don't know. Maybe if Brock Purdy's fully healthy, maybe he starts. But then how's he going to look? He hasn't thrown. He is throwing. He is throwing in his throwing sessions, but like actual game action. Let's see how that. I'm curious to see how that pans out. And then the offensive line obviously has a lot of questions, so I talked about that enough in length. So while I'm glad Kyle Shanahan finally has no longer like in case of injury, break the Jimmy G glass to rely on anymore, he now has a larger problem at hand. Is it going to be Brock Purdy or is it going to be Trey Lance that starts? And I don't know if I can say if it's a good problem to have because, well, you kind of don't know what they have to offer because Trey Lance doesn't have a good sample size. Brock Purdy has a good sample size now, and teams have film on him. So if he doesn't perform well, and Trey Lance also doesn't perform well, oof. And apparently, many of the media, whether it be local or national, love media. Not love media. They love Brock Purdy, but they hate Trey Lance. I don't know, man. It's just a whole absurd situation all around. So overall, whether or not Brock Purdy's ready to go in week 1 in Pittsburgh, you got to give Trey Lance a chance. You got to give him a shot to start as a starter. This season, because, obviously last season he got hurt. This season is now the time to do it. If he is the guy to be the starter this season and maybe even down the road, awesome. If he isn't, bummer. Go back to Brock Purdy. But like I said, if Purdy is also not the answer, then we have a bigger problem. But until Brock Purdy is healthy, we'll get to that problem. For now, in my opinion, it's Trey Lance's show until otherwise. Now, as for their overall season, I think they'll still win the NFC West. It's pretty bold to stay at this point. There'll be a little bit of a slight regression because of the quarterback issue, but I say they go 12-5. Let's get that bold. So, yeah. The Niners got to fix this quarterback problem, like, real soon.